Okay, guys, can we start? Wonderful. All right. So good evening, everyone. It's Sunday, 5 p.m. and it's time for Sundays at 5 p.m. with Heritage Beku. This time, we are really excited to have Prabhakar Rao with us, Dr. Prabhakar Rao. And I must share with you that when you know someone very well, and when you know them for a long time, and when you also think that their wife is one of the most beautiful women that you know in the world, you tend to take people for granted. You know, you forget the things that they do and all the fantastic things that they've added value to and changed, etc. And Prabhakar is always somebody I have valued so much for his intense, exposure to the environment, to green, to landscaping, but also to something that he has been very quiet about, but very, he's been a change maker, has really made the difference that is required and the change that India needs in a space which is heirloom seeds and growing. So while he calls himself the Seedkeeper, a name which I absolutely love, what's interesting is the chance that I was telling Prabhakar when we spoke yesterday. I got very excited about this program because I said, there's so much that's going to be relevant and interesting for us. And I'm really looking forward to this one and views that I hadn't really thought about. But I think what really excited me was, I said, I've always meant to attend one of Prabhakar's conversations or talks, and he has these amazing TED Talks, which I absolutely love. But this time around, I said, I've always felt that you save the good stuff for the last, or you save, so scared that something's going to finish up that you want to save it up. So Prabhakar is my secret dessert and somebody that I've been wanting to listen to forever. And now I'm happy to sort of share my dessert with you. But on a serious note, I also want to tell you that it is so amazing that, we never really think of what's on our table. And while we at Heritage Beku have been talking about cultural and built and natural heritage and taking great pride in that, when this conversation about heirloom seeds came up and how it impacts people and our continuity, our immersion in the past and our ability to kind of take it forward, I was amazed at the kind of connection that we were able to make. And I truly tell you that even though we had a very cursory conversation yesterday, much of it really stayed with me as something that was super exciting. And I hope that you enjoy some of the vignettes that Prabhakar is able to bring to you. I will do the little bit about the introduction because I'm being very conscious that because I know Prabhakar so very well in so many years, that I know him as Prabhakar and all the wonderful things that he does, he quietly puts under a bushel. And I think even his introduction does that. So you're not going to get the breadth of this man who's actually brought back in some way our past into our larder and our past onto our table. So, and a man who's very, very committed to doing that. So Prabhakar has been a seed keeper for over 25 years. He's been collecting native, indigenous vegetable seeds that are on the brink of extinction. So any of us who thought that we were saving a building, I don't know whether you ever thought of saving a seed with all the, the metaphorical implications that we can imagine. His travels have taken him to remote parts of the world where his interactions with the older generation of farmers have allowed him access to these forgotten varieties. And some of his stories yesterday were incredible. I hope he takes time to share them with us. Returning to India in 2011, he conducted extensive testing of over 500 such varieties in his farm in Bangalore for genetic stability, for environmental suitability. He now has stabilized about 240 rare indigenous vegetable varieties collected from both within the country and abroad. From his farm, which is Haryali Seeds, which I've had the pleasure of visiting, we belong to the same quiz group, so that was more the quiz than anything else. But hey, I'm going to go back with a lot more interest, better lens, etc. when I go there. He now reaches out to other passionate seed keepers, farmers, and urban gardeners. And urban gardeners, by the way, is one of the most interesting segments that he's looking at, and collectively works towards the preservation and propagation of these rare vegetable varieties that are on the brink of extinction. While studying for his PhD in agriculture a little over 30 years ago, Prabhakar instinctively knew that there was something amiss with what was being propagated. He belonged to the generation of scientists from the lineage of Dr. Norman Borlaug and Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who created the Green Revolution, who pushed farmers to use hybrid seeds, fertilizers, pesticides for industrial agriculture. So putting it in context, that's interesting, Prabhakar. But deep inside, he was not sure if industrial agriculture was a sustainable model, and how right he was. As chairman in the Agricultural Trust of the Art of Living, he now promotes sustainable, chemical-free, natural farming technologies across the country. He specially trains farmers on climate resilient agriculture. He mentors youngsters on startups in the field of sustainable agriculture. He's also a globally renowned landscape architect and involved with some of the largest iconic projects in the country today. And in fact, I've actually gone back to him for some of those things. So we are actually, we've connected on two different issues around heritage. But I love what he's talking about in terms of resilience or sustainability. These are words that are overused, but you need practitioners. Prabhakar, without further ado, we've had amazing conversations over a period of time, but more of them have been, coming and going. We've touched on subjects and we've moved on. And I really wasn't joking when I said, I hope that in some ways, this is something that I've saved the best for last, and we really come to know a little bit more about how important this space is. So I'm not even allowing you to say hello. So hi, Prabhakar. So, and welcome to Heritage Beku, to all the wonderful stuff that Heritage Beku and many of our team are here right now, are dying to know about, putting the history back on our table, or just enjoying our history a lot more. But how relevant it is, we're going to find out. We're really going to find out. So I'm going to go straight in with the first question, Prabhakar, which is, how has the loss of heirloom seeds affected our culinary table? And as an adjunct to that, what are heirloom seeds? I mean, heirloom saris, treasures, furniture, heirloom seeds. So what are they and how have they affected our culinary table?
Yes, thanks a million, Priya. I mean, always a pleasure to interact with you, and especially the work that you're doing for Bangalore. I mean, I've always admired your passion for really being such an activist and a campaigner to keep Bangalore, the heritage, the tradition, the culture of Bangalore alive. So it's really an honor for me to share this platform with you. And yes, I like the way you said, heirloom saris and heirloom seeds. What exactly are heirloom seeds? Yeah, I think we need to really discuss this before we go further. The word heirloom, heirloom actually means something that is coming from generations. That's really the context of the word heirloom. That means something that's been passed on from generation to generation. And seeds are one such commodity, one such item that gets passed on in the generation of farmers. Yeah. So our tradition has always been that farmers never bought seeds. Till about 100 years ago, no farmer went and bought seeds. They exchanged seeds maybe, but they always produced their own seed for the next season's planting. This was every farmer was a seed keeper. He was the protector, and we all believed that seeds belonged to all of mankind. No entity, company, individual, or corporation could ever own seeds. Seeds belong, nature bestowed seeds to mankind, and seeds belong to everybody. So this is the fundamental tenet of the Guild of the Seed Keepers, where we believe seeds are a gift from nature. They belong to everybody. We may multiply them, we may share them, but we never own them. So heirloom seeds are those seeds from which you can make your own seed. It's as simple as that. So to give you the contra to that, if you bought a tomato, now all tomatoes in the market today are hybrid. Let me guarantee you that unless you went and looked for some desi, nati tomatoes in the market, which don't look so good, yeah, but they are the tastiest and they are the most flavorful. But we are so used to going to the supermarket, seeing all those very evenly produced. It's like from a factory production line, everything same size, same color, same polish, same shape, no blemishes. Well, that will be either a hybrid or GMO, guaranteed. Now, these will have seeds in them, but if you sow them, you'll never get back the mother plant. You will get 100 other plants, but never the mother plant, which is why farmers can never use the seeds of a hybrid or the seeds of a GMO, because you will never get back the mother plant. So you will get, if you sow 100 seeds, you will get 100 types of plants. Some of them will not yield. Some of them will be very long duration. Some will be very short duration. It just doesn't make sense for you to grow those seeds.
Yeah.
So the model is that the hybrid seed industry, it became an industry because the farmer has to go and buy seed every season. Whereas heirloom seeds, heirloom seeds are those seeds from which farmers can make seed generation after generation after generation. This is, there is no business model in it, because if I shared some of my seeds with you, you could multiply them and share it with 100 other people. There is nothing preventing you from doing that. So it never makes any sense for me to commercially produce those seeds. I'll produce seeds for myself and a little more to share with other farmers, and that's it. The farmers will multiply it whenever they want it. So it was such a democratic way of handling such a precious resource of seed. The whole world practiced this till about 100 years ago, when seed became an industry. And when that happened, and when farmers started to buy seeds every season, the first fallout of that was they stopped making seeds themselves. So a whole lot of indigenous seeds, nati seeds, what we call desi seeds, the heirloom seeds, the indigenous native seeds, they started to disappear from this planet. And it's just amazing, because if I just share this one little slide, I normally don't do PPTs, but I just thought this is such a beautiful slide from the National Geographic. And if you looked at a century ago, Priya,
Yeah.
let's look at the varieties, 408 varieties of tomatoes. And this just in the US. World over, the figure would be 10 times that. You would have just peas, 408 varieties of peas, lettuces, 497 varieties of lettuces, cucumbers, 285, cabbages, 544, muskmelons, 338, squashes, 341. You got beets, 288. I mean, that is what we had. And in 1983, and I guarantee you, 30 years, that was 30 years ago. Now it's even worse. 408 varieties of tomatoes had already become 79. Today, we just have around 40 varieties left. You've got cucumbers, only 16 cucumbers left. And today, we have maybe around 10 or 12 cucumber varieties left on this planet. Native seeds I'm talking about. Similarly, with squashes, just about 40 left. Beets, only 17 left. Lettuces, only 36 left. And today, it's even worse. So if you looked at this, it's frightening what's happening. And this is happening right under our nose.
Yes.
We are in an age where there's big data and media and social media and everything, but this is just happening under the radar. Nobody knows that these heirloom seeds are just dying out, because when you go to the supermarket, the vegetables are there. So you don't really think there's something wrong. But the fact is, there's something colossally wrong going on at this particular moment.
Prabhakar, that's absolutely, it's fascinating, because all of us, it's a story. But the fact is, it's a story of slow death. And the irony of this is that, this is something which is edible. So when you look at something edible, which anyway goes into your system, dying, you never really think about that. So for me, I'm able to relate to dissolution of a park or trees. But when I think of seeds as being a means of food dying out, I don't think, and I'm saying, I do mean that I was not really I'm not exposed to this, but the fact that it is gone or going it hits home on multiple grounds. I'll give you a very small example. We recently, and I think I may have mentioned this to you, my helper, Maria, has been, I love the perfect tomatoes we get in hybrid. We call them Bangalore tomatoes, the perfect oval, firm, you cut them into slices, perfect. So we've been having that because that's all you have. I mean, that's what I think about. And she said, Amma, please, can we get our nati tomato? And I never even thought about it. So all I know, nati tomatoes were the fat ones. And I realized that these were bumpy. They had shapes that were different. They were not identical. But by God, the taste. It changed. So my good old boring paneer, tomato, whatever, or my rasam is changing, is tasting different. So it's a moment of, for me, a little bit of a aha when I realized that just like you don't use a building and therefore it dies and it gets disused and finally crumbles and goes away. Similarly, with a lack of sustainability, a lack of market, seeds also will, and in some ways, whatever. But that's about me. I'm just trying to make this, probably my own aha moment. But there is thank you for explaining the heirloom bit, Prabhakar, but how has it affected our culinary table? We've talked about that ad nauseum on the when we were talking about Heritage Beko, and we have a lot of people who signed in very excited about this program for this reason, saying it's heritage is in your larder. What does it? So why is it affecting us?
Yeah. So, our entire culinary palette, if you look at the kind of recipes that our grandmothers and great grandmothers had at their disposal, just like we had this enormous variety of native heirloom vegetables, they had a wide variety of culinary recipes. If you look at some of the texts which depict this, yeah, and one of them is this beautiful text from Karnataka, and it's called the Super Shastra. So if you look at this particular text here, this text is the Super Shastra. It was published in 1508, and it was translated later on. And Super Shastra is one of those beautiful texts where you look at the kind of dishes they had. They had maybe around 20 types of what we today call rasam. They called it different types of sa curries and plain curries and all kinds of things. And you had maybe around 20 types of rasam. You had this kotta avarekai. Now the vegetable is not there now. Huh? Then sukara kalungo. This another one. Then valika kolango. All these kind of vegetables, they were a part of this Karnataka, where those days it was not known as the Karnataka, but it belonged to a very, very rich culture and tradition of empires, the Vijayanagara, the Cholas, and all the wonderful kingdoms that were there. And the references to the culinary richness of this region went as far as Mesopotamia, Persia, to Europe, to China, where people have written about the wonderful feasts that they would experience when they came to this part of India, south of the Vindhyas. And they talk about these buffets where there would be 200 dishes, and it was really like, one of those Vitlacharya films, where you have this, the Gajana Bhojanamidhi, that kind of thing, where there is everything to eat, it's like the divine feast, And what is beautiful is that this culture had elevated chefs to the status of almost royalty. Today, also, when you look at the chefs that we have in several Brahmin communities, like the bhaths in South Canara, the Melkote Iyengars, and all these people, they all belong to this kind of lineage. They come down from there, yeah, and they were given the status, very, very high status in the royal court. So everybody aspired to be a great chef because the kings would sort of reward them. So, there is such a beautiful heritage that's as important to us as the monuments that we have through history, whether the palaces or the forts. Our culinary heritage was equally a monument that was renowned far and wide. It crossed the borders. People used to talk about this wonderful, and the Super Shastra, it gives a small, it's the tip of the iceberg. It just gives you a clue of how rich, so when you talk about heritage Beko, to revive the heritage of Bangalore, I mean, this is as important as everything else that we are doing in terms of reviving heritage, and you go through these, through the Super Shastra, it has more than, I think, around 400 dishes, a collection of 400 dishes. I can guarantee you more than 60% of them today, you just will not be able to use, because you require, we'll come back to this one, but you require plants like this, which used to be grown, like the Gunta Barangi, which is one of the beautiful things. And they give you a recipe how to use this plant. Today, you will have to forage in the outskirts of Bangalore to find this plant. But those days, they used to just actually grow this. You've got Kavala, again, a great plant, which, they used to use in Super Shastra. You had the Ikara, and you had many, many plants like this. So in those days, our palate was so, the vegetables, we had such a huge variety of vegetables. So we could make all these wonderful dishes, Can you imagine sambar? There would be like maybe around 17 or 20 varieties of just sambar. Curry, they used to call it curry. And rasams, like I said, 20 varieties of rasam, and they had such, I mean, it was such a rich heritage that we had. But because today the vegetables are not there, you can't cook them. They're gone. I mean, so unless we revive the vegetable, we can't get back our heritage for which we were known. I mean, Super Shastra is a living testament to that. And it's amazing because it's a beautiful treatise, right from the kind of utensils, the kind of cooking that you do, everything, the discipline that you must have as a chef. I mean, what a culture, Priya. I mean, the culture we had, the culinary culture, it's just marvelous,
I mean, that is absolutely amazing because, when you talk about all this and the kinds of rasam and the kinds of different dishes that we've lost out on, I'm really getting a sense, Prabhakar, of how important this is for all of us to reinvest and relook at. And, when you talked about the Super Shastra, I'm saying 1508. It's a text, and I hope that it's available on PDF, and I hope we can find it and keep it somewhere safe. But again, our palate has lost a lot of different flavors, and flavors that perhaps we're genetically disposed to enjoy and benefit from, and health, etc. So we've talked about what heirloom seeds are. We've also talked about how it's affected, the loss of it has affected our culinary table. And when you're talking about a chef, I had to say this quickly. Well, if the late 16th century, if chefs were like the guys, I'm just saying, I always look at people like, for example, like Manu Chandra, who's an amazing chef, and so many others, of course, we have, who also are very, very convinced and very focused on reintroducing original recipes and, going back to basics. But I always told him, I said, he can wear black, he's skinny as can be, he's a chef, and he has a dog that he can bring to work. So for me, he was all sorted. I mean, he was like, I said, you have the perfect life. But, the idea of a chef being, this person who was also a culinary warrior, as it were, somebody who was guarding tradition and being able to take it on by literally eating history, is something which is staying with me and resonating in a wonderful, really, really exciting, and feeling very, very happy to hear all that. And you also, when you talked about this book, I remembered the first book, I think, that my mother-in-law gave me, and I'm sure there are lots of people who feel exactly the same way. My mother-in-law did ask me that, do you know how to make pressure cook rice, and do you know, can you make anything? And I said, I can boil an egg and I make a chapati and stuff like that. But she did give me Sametupar, which is Meenakshi Amal's, and for some reason she gave me part 2. assumption was that I would know part one. I have no idea. But when I looked through that, some of it I can't relate to anymore. But it was the cooking book, the cookbook that I looked at when I was trying to impress my in-laws. So what happens to books like this or Super Shastra? What is there? Is there some way that is that a linkage? Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think every, every bride in the South, I mean, this was the standard gift. Apart from anything else you gave the bride, you gave one copy of Sametyupar, cook and see. I mean, incredible woman, Meenakshi Amal. She not only published in Tamil this entire book, but she translated it into every single language.
Ah.
Yeah, it's amazing. You will get it in Telugu, Kannada, you will get it in English. And it's just amazing that she was such an entrepreneur lady, And and that's another thing. Let me just try and show you that part of it as well, because yeah, we will just yeah. Now this is Meenakshi Ammal. So probably this is the original Tamil version of it.
Yeah.
And if you look at Meenakshi Ammal and you see this picture that is there, on the left-hand side, you see something that looks like brown sticks or something like that. Actually, that is a very beautiful vegetable called makli bear. And I'll talk to you about this. This is what makli bear looks like, and it used to be such an important ingredient for our culinary recipes in the past, and I'll tell you why. This is another one, which is the clove bean, and there are beautiful dishes that she has spoken about, and I will just play you a little clip. So what I did was I took Meenakshi Ammal's book and try to identify what are all the vegetables that I can still somehow try and save. Yeah. And I went about, trying to restore these, revive these lost vegetables. And this was one of them. So I'll just play this video clip. You can give me a thumbs up if you can see it play and you can hear the voice.
This is a variety that had almost become extinct. And if you see this particular clove bean, this variety was in the book that was published in the 1950s by, which is called Sametyupar, Meenakshi Ammal's Sametyupar. She gives recipes with this particular vegetable. But this vegetable is no more in the market. And today we are reviving this particular bean. It makes an extremely tasty vegetable dish. And I'm very grateful for Venkatesh, who shared these particular seeds with me, a few seeds of this precious variety. And now we are in the midst of, multiplying and reviving this variety from extinction. So our next thing would be actually to make these, make a dish that Meenakshi Ammal had given in her recipe many years ago, and revive that dish also using these beans. So this is going to be a very interesting journey for us.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's what happens, you have all these wonderful vegetables, and these are so easy to grow, Priya. I mean, we should never have lost these vegetables because they are so hardy. One thing about native heirloom varieties is that they are very resilient. They are like our street dogs, I mean, you don't need a vet and you don't need pampering. They will eat what there is and they will be there, guarding your streets. So it's like that. They're so hardy, so easy to grow in a balcony, and these things like clove bean, it's such a profuse yielder. In about 4 months, you will get so much of vegetable that you can try all Meenakshi Ammal recipes, with clove bean. It's such a delicious, vegetable. So it's just beautiful when you look at literature like this, and then you start seeing which are the missing vegetables. And then you start going and collecting these and then start to revive them. You're not just bringing back diversity of the planet, but you're also bringing back that culinary heritage. It is that heritage beko, So your tagline, that is where we go back to.
Amazing, amazing. Now, truly, Prabhakar, I mean, you're showing us a picture of that what was it called?
Clove bean, clove bean.
Clove bean, which is what I'm using the English word. But, it looks terrific. It looks delicious. And it also seems like something I'd want to, if I get enough of, I'd like to try. Of course, I always, like anybody, in the space of heritage, always feel bad using up something. You're always trying to save up things and savor it. So the fact that you want to eat heritage is a little bit of a difficult one, but I think I'm going to commit to it, and I'm going to go back and figure out how to get this and eat it. But it sounds terrific. Yeah. Terrific that it's there so you can try and find out. You've got a Super Shastra which allows you to at least explore the kind of vegetables or different units that existed at that time. And the fact that you're able to grow them again, Prabhakar, I'm absolutely amazed. So you also mentioned to me, you said today, the Maki Beru was something that you mentioned, but you said today, if you look at a vangi bath, which is such a common thing which you see here, true vangi bath doesn't exist anymore. Now, tell us about that.
Yeah, let me go back to the vangi bath. Yes. See, vangi bath happens to be such an interesting. It belongs to Karnataka. Actually, this is the one. Now, in Karnataka, on the left-hand side, you had the original Mysore white. They called it white, but it used to be a pale green. And it was the Mysore badnekai, which means the Mysore brinjal, and very specially grown near Irengere, which is a village near Mysore. And this was the variety which would be grown all over Karnataka. And we made this wonderful dish called the vangi bath. Yeah. Vangi bath is one of Karnataka's original culinary, and I'm sure, and I saw that in Super Shastra as well. Vangi bath is there in Super Shastra. So we've got some 400-500 years of history behind that. Yeah. So, and then if you see on the right-hand side, this is one of the company's hybrid wannabe. I call it a wannabe Irengere. And this is what you will find in the market. It looks very nice. It looks very full. It looks very, you can see on the left-hand side, the original, you'll get it in all shapes. Some are small, some are long, some are thinner, some are a little fatter. But here you can see everything is like factory made. Yeah. And this is what you will find in the market today. So today, when you go to the market, you find these wannabe, Mysore badnekas, but the thing doesn't have a taste. As a result, today, if you go to our restaurants, vangi bath has disappeared from the menu because chefs, they make vangi bath with this brinjal, but it doesn't taste great. It's got a very flat taste. Whereas the original Irengere, it melts like butter. When you put it in your mouth, it melts like butter, and it's got this wonderful flavor. Which is so beautifully meshed with the masala that goes into the vangi bath masala that goes into the rice. It used to be a one-pot dish. People could just have vangi bath for lunch. That was the kind of dish it was. Today, I mean, you will have to really struggle to find vangi bath in the menu of a restaurant. And even if you get it, it's made from this wannabe, No comparison. So today, I have recovered the original seed, the Irengere seed from around Mysore, and brought it back. Similarly, we have a variety of banana, which is called the Nanjangud Bale. About 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you go to KR Market, on the entrance of KR Market in Mysore, the Krishna Rajendra Market, on the right-hand side, you would have all these bunches of banana, small, nice bananas, which were very special. They were called the Nanjangud banana. And what is so special about a Nanjangud banana? You could hang it in your larder and keep it for 6 months. You could keep eating it over 6 months. The entire skin would become black in color. It would keep losing water and becoming sweeter and sweeter. And it would last for 6 months. Today, you don't have a banana that will last for 6 days after it ripens. This was 6 months, and we lost this variety. We completely lost this variety. So now in our ashram, we are reviving this particular variety, and farmers have started to make good money, out of this. But more than anything, you've brought back a banana which has a shelf life of 6 months, and it becomes sweeter and sweeter. As it becomes older, it just starts to become drier and sweeter and sweeter. And I remember in my house, we used to hang it. My grandfather used to hang it in the kitchen loft. And then, we keep plucking and eating it for days on end. We never had to rush to eat a bunch of bananas. So it's just incredible how wonderful these varieties are. And that's our heritage. More than anything, this is our DNA. I mean, this is who we are. So we need to protect this. More than anything, we need to protect this. We need to revive this. And these seeds, if you go to Haryali Seeds website, these seeds, I put them up online. You are most welcome to take it. I want you to multiply it. I want you to put it up on social media. I want you to share it with friends. That's the only way we can keep these varieties alive. So that's a little bit of on the vangi bath. That's my story on
sharing. And about the Nanjangud bananas, my God, I had no idea. 6 months. I mean, I can see Alia sort of popped up and said, "Are you nuts? 6 months?" But Prabhakar, and I'm sure this is not the end of the story. There must be tens and maybe hundreds of things which can pop up, and there are maybe 100 that there are 500 that a collective of number of other people may know, but you are the custodian. And for me, I will never eat vangi bath again with the same kind of interest, which I know I'm being shortchanged in some way or the other. So maybe the next Heritage Beko, we might just do something interesting about vangi bath and dessert of bananas or whatever. But I want to come back to a question which you in fact initiated by something that you said. You talked about farmers not finding it viable. We take all the so-called progress, and of course, Prabhakar, you yourself have been part of that, where you were part of industrial agriculture, where your idea was how much can you produce, how many can you do, and it's a numbers game, and whatever helps the numbers helps everyone. But you're going back to something which is real, which is sustainable. But at the end of it, there are different things. You talk about heritage, we talk about social issues, we talk about culture, we talk about health, we talk about heritage. But the socio-economics or the economics of it, I'm not saying that's the only reason why it's gone extinct, but tell us, why have these seeds gone extinct? We talked about seasons and bounty and, the stuff that happened because of the ebb and fall of nature, the way. Tell us about how that links up with economics and why have these got extinct?
Yeah. So like I said, with the advent of hybrids and GMOs, farmers had to buy seed every season. So first shift happened when you sort of went into the industrial agriculture regime, which is largely monoculture. So if you grow banana, you just grow banana, nothing else. Yeah. Because it's just the way the industrial scales work. It's a question of scaling, mass production, so that everything can be mechanized, everything can be, done in proper protocols, and, it can be scaled. So this is how the agriculture shifted from when we used to have food forests in our backyards, where there'd be a multitude of variety. You would have a couple of banana trees, you would have a couple of turmeric growings, a couple of ginger plants, you would have a food forest. Even a kitchen garden. My grandmother's kitchen garden used to be a food forest. She would have this one brinjal, and she would have the gourds and the bitter gourds, and she would have these toothache plants and all the herbs and everything. She would actually grow a food forest. So when we moved away from that and came to monoculture and industrial agriculture, this seed saving as a habit first went off. Now, today, we are trying to revive this, but what happens is the consumer has forgotten the vegetables. So if today my farmer grew, let us say, 10 tons of clove bean and brought it to the market, there would be no takers because nobody would know what to do with this vegetable. So that would kill the farmer. So what I've tried to set out to do is, my biggest champions are the urban farmers. So urban gardeners, yeah, I call them farmers, but urban gardeners. And these are my sort of champions, because what they do is they take seed from me, they grow it. So let's suppose they took a clove bean or a makli beru or something like that, or an air potato,
I love
they would
that.
grow this, and they would grow it even on the balcony. But then the multiplier effect of social media, they'll post it on their Insta and Facebook, 1,000 likes and whatever. Now what happens is, their friends ask them, what is this? I'll give you the seed, so they are the people who sort of start to create awareness. Yeah. Now, once the awareness is created, if you saw that vegetable, you wouldn't think that this is some sort of a weird, something that's been injected with a dye, or, some kind of a weird mutant, that's going to kill you if you eat it or something like that. You would know that this is one of the exotic, hyper exotic heirlooms that's a part of our DNA. So you would subscribe to it, you would eat it with relish. And what is happening is that today, when I go to restaurants, I go to, for example, I go to Green Theory, and I see, or even in BIC, I mean, that's one of the nice places, our restaurant there that we have there, and you order a Caesar salad, and you get these beautiful cherry tomatoes of different colors. You get one that's blue in color, one that's, chocolate in color, one that's yellow in color. These were seeds that I started to save about 7 or 8 years back, and somehow, through people multiplying it, creating awareness, and somehow it getting into the hands of chefs who understood that each variety is different in its flavor, in its fragrance, in its texture. I mean, on my website, I might have more than 25 varieties of tomatoes. Each of them have a different purpose. Some are for making juices, some are for making sauces, some are for eating fresh in a salad, some of them are used for cooking. The flavors, the textures, everything is different. Each of them are different. It's like breeds of dog. I mean, they're all different. And today, when I see these vegetables, I see somebody using toothache plant to create a sorbet to cleanse your palate between courses of meals. I mean, it's extremely heartening, because I know that now this toothache plant is not going to go extinct because somebody's found a use for it. So somebody is going to grow it at somewhere on this planet. These varieties will continue to survive. And for a seed keeper, I think that's the biggest reward, of seeing your vegetables actually, starting to surface in various kitchens and various restaurants. But still, we are still far away from farmers growing it, because more demand, and I think it'll happen in the next couple of years, people will start asking for these vegetables in the market. That's when farmers will start to grow it. And when that happens, I know these will never go extinct again.
Absolutely. So beautifully said. And Prabhakar, the fact that it goes instinct, I mean, there's always going to be the issue of economics and the issue of demand. But as long as the right, the right avenues are formed, everything is becoming so much more individual and so much more specific and demand specific, etc. I'm sure there are going to be markets for all these things. So while we broadly say things like chemical free and organic, which is a nice buzzword to use, the fact is that people are getting now the word is very probably not appropriate, very sophisticated, by wanting to go back, actually going back in time. And this is one of the few times when someone will tell you that you want to preserve your heritage, eat it up. I don't think anyone in any space in heritage has been told that, because we are so busy trying to keep something alive and preserving it and putting it in a box and trying to hold on to it. But eat it up if you want to keep it alive. And I think that's a phenomenal thing. I mean, I'm so impressed to hear some of I'm going to go to BIC and actually check out this blue cherry tomatoes, because it sounds terrific. And we went on to another conversation, and I'm very conscious, in terms of while I'm sure there'll be questions, and I would request very much if people could just put in some of the questions in the chat room, so we could talk about that in a little bit more detail. And I'm sure if Prabhakar wouldn't mind if we go 4 or 5 minutes beyond our time thing of 6 o'clock, but we'll try and respect that. I want to come back to Prabhakar. Sorry, I should put me. So I really want to come back to this question, which is, again, something you said in passing. You talked about, apart from the fact of nature's bounty, there was a certain flow of the seasons and what your body needed and the doshas. I just was blown away. I mean, I never thought about it. But issues about DNA and your identity, these are things that I'm not able to comprehend in the realm of food or seeds or vegetables or fruits. So I want to sort of have you jump in and hold that thought and broaden it for us so we can understand what is all this about? This biodiversity and DNA and regaining identity.
Yeah. So, to our ancients, food was not just a source of energy. It was not carbohydrate or protein getting pumped into your body. It was much, much more than that. They understood food as a part of the medicine. They always looked at food as a part of your health. It was never about just filling your stomach or something tasting great on your tongue. It was a part of what kept you healthy. And for them, health was never just about a healthy body. It was a healthy body in a healthy mind. And they had this wonderful saying, Jaisa ann, vaisa man. That means you are what you eat. In terms of how you think is dictated largely by what you eat. And there are two major texts that I have. One is the Charaka Samhita. Charaka is the father of Ayurveda. An extensive treatise on how to use plants as medicine to balance the human body. Yeah. So he talks about there are 3 doshas or 3, shall we say, aspects to human health, which he called vata, pitta, and kapha. You could say vata is something like inertia, pitta is fire, and sattva is a sort of a balance. So you had these 3, and in Vriksha Ayurveda, which dates back right to the Rig Veda, 13 chapters in the Rig Veda and 6 in the Yajur Veda. And then you had Krishi Parasara Rishi, who wrote the Krishi Parasara. Then Chanakya in the Artha Shastra goes very deep into agriculture. And then you had Vriksha Ayurveda by Surapala. That was around the 16th century. He did the commentary on that. Now, both these talk about plants also having these 3 gunas, as they call, the vata, pitta, and kapha. And therefore, if there was an imbalance in your body, which happened because of the change in season, your grandmother would immediately bring out of the larder those plants which would then balance. Going back to the makli bear, it was the same thing. The moment winter set in, the nature would bestow the bounty of these roots. That's when you harvested these roots. And they would come into the market. So around November, it would come into the market. Grandmother would go, she would get it. You go to Malleshwaram market, Baswangudi market, you would find heaps of this makli bear. It was seasonal. And everybody would buy this, and they would make these syrups. They would make these chutneys and these pickles of this. And in winter, you would be fed makli bear because it gave that fire, it gave that pitta, which the body requires in cold climate. Similarly, when the summer starts, she would have many, many other plants which would do the reverse. It would bring in the cooling effect for your body. Yeah. So there was an intricate science where seasonally, what nature gave you would be what your body required. And therefore, our grandparents, they were very, very clued on to this. So we have actually a calendar where the month of Chaitra, Vaisakha, Jeshta, Ashada, every month, the Hindu calendar, we have this almanac where every month there is a list of vegetables.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a list of vegetables, there's a list of grains, there's a list of fruits, which if you see, that's exactly the season when nature bestows that bounty. But today what has happened, because of our cold storage and supply chain, you get the same vegetables 365 days a year. You want brinjal, 12 months a year, you will get brinjal in the supermarket, a shelf. You want ladyfinger, you want the okras, they're there in the supermarket 12. So there is no concept of seasonal vegetables anymore, because the supermarkets are so full of all vegetables all around the year. Because we have all the core supply chain. I mean, you could go to the month of February and get apples. Apples are never there on the tree in February, but you'd still eat apple in February, right? Because of the cold storage and supply chain, right?
Yeah.
This happens to everything now. So now this entire concept of food being a part of our health, not just our body's health, but our mind, how we think and who we are is dependent on what we eat and when we eat it. So that when has disappeared.
Yes.
It's now what we eat. No, so today we had, bhindi, therefore tomorrow we'll have bangan. So that's how the menu gets made in the house. Oh, we had peas yesterday, therefore we will have, beans tomorrow and carrots tomorrow. Carrots will be available throughout the year.
Sure.
I mean, there's no seasonality to carrots. So the when has dropped out. And we are paying a dear price for this. We don't understand this because it's just under our radar. But seasonal vegetables, and that is why I believe you need to go back to the heirloom vegetables, because heirloom vegetables can't be forced to flower or fruit out of season.
Oh.
They will grow. I always say this, if a baby takes 9 months to come out of the womb, you have to give it 9 months. There's no question of making a hybrid that will shorten it to 6 months. You're going to get it's either going to be bad for the mother or for the child. Yeah. So it's the same story with the hybrid. You put fertilizer to a hybrid variety, hybrid heirloom variety, it collapses. It doesn't grow. It just bolts and collapses. It can't take it.
Oh.
Because they were never bred for nutrient absorption, nitrogen utilization. It's one of the plant breeders' main thing. When you put fertilizer, how quickly does your plant absorb that is a characteristic for making a hybrid variety.
Oh.
Our natives don't do that. Our native vegetables don't do that. Heirlooms don't do that. They grow as nature intended them to grow. So when you grow heirloom vegetables in your kitchen garden, you are eating what nature bestows you as bounty, knowing what your body and mind need at that particular point in time. So I think that connection is something very, very significant.
Absolutely. Prabhakar, that's something that's, I would say escapes. I would not put myself in the category of very, very well-informed people, but it escapes me, which I'm not surprised by. But I think it escapes a lot of other people, that sometimes when you go against nature, there are things, there are repercussions that one is not able to foresee or be able to correct. And like you said, they don't accept chemical fertilizer. Wow. I mean, that's my condition. I will have only this. The plants have their own doshas. Oh my God, who knew that? I am fascinated by the fact that this layering of what you eat, when you eat it, when nature presents itself to you, and is as something which builds your body, respects nature, allows a certain sustainability, and allows you to grow the way you're supposed to. Maybe something that we really need to focus on in a holistic kind of way. And Prabhakar, if I were to put this very very, very bluntly now, if anything, COVID has taught us, and I'm sorry, this lovely conversation will be interrupted by one more COVID bulletin. I'm so sorry. And I'm sure we are all masked up at home. But hey, if one thing we have been taught in this horrendous 2 years has been to respect in some way or the other nature. I'm respecting my dog right now. I'm sorry, who's barking. But that's JD. Sorry. So that's something which I truly believe um, is something which is new for all of us. We have to figure out how much of it we can do, and how much we can, if one can use the word sacrifice, to make sure that we invest in its future. We have to invest in it in the past, eat up, and go ahead and sort of put ourselves in for the future. So I love the idea of, just one sec, hold on. I'm sorry about this.
Why don't you, I'll just continue. You want to just attend to the door? No, you're okay. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, you wanted me to speak. You're on mute.
Yeah. So no, I just wanted to talk about how this part of it is sustainable, but more importantly, the sustainability of it, the issue of how important it is for you to preserve, and your own degree. You've got your specialization in genetics, in bioengineering, which really can. Your greenhouses have to be separate. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is one of the good parts, is that I have a education. My PhD was in genetics and plant breeding. I was in agriculture college, and that today has come in very handy, because one thing about heirloom seeds is that they are open pollinated. In fact, they are called OPVs. That means open pollinated varieties, and these OPVs, they get pollinated by nature. So to make pure varieties, pure lines of these varieties, you need to use very, very scientific techniques. So it takes me about 5 to 6 years just to stabilize a variety. If somebody gave me seed, sometimes it takes me up to 6 years just to stabilize it environmentally, genetically, and then put it online. Because when I give the seed to somebody, they should get the plant they want, not something else, So that's really thing. And you're talking about, what must, even if we have to sacrifice to grow this, let me assure you, Priya, there is no sacrifice. There's pure joy. I mean, as a home gardener, if you grew any of these varieties, it's only pure joy. I mean, there's so much you get out of it that you really don't have to worry about, this thing. So, yeah, so there are some questions, and Jija, I will definitely answer. Vriksha Ayurveda talks about this, the tamas, rajas, and sattva in plants. And in those days, if the summer starts, they would actually put buttermilk to the crops. They would actually put buttermilk in the ground because it is cooling. Before the winter starts, they would put sesame seed oil cake because it provides heat to the plants. They looked after plants the way today Ayurveda looks after humans. There was Vriksha Ayurveda. That is Ayurveda for the plants. That's a science. And, they did everything. They looked after plants just as they would look after human beings. And they would look after this balancing of these doshas, It's an incredible science. Even I was fascinated the first time when I saw that, boy, I mean, you had this three dosha in plants. I couldn't believe it. And then I went deep into the texts, and what a heritage we have. It's just amazing, and bringing all this back, I run a course called Vedic Agriculture. It's just a 3-day, 2-hour, session that I conduct. And, if you in that, I try to revive all these traditions, of understanding plants the way you understand the human body.
Yeah.
So there is much that is happening. Yeah.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating, to see that all these things sort of cling together. But I think there's so many learnings, and Jija's put out a really interesting question there. And I was telling her when I was inviting her for this talk, I said, we're never going to look at tomatoes or, vegetables the same way again, because we're such users. We're not keepers, like you are saying, seed keepers, but it's possible. The beautiful thing is it's possible. And that's what I love about this talk, that there's a lot we can do going away from it in terms of preservation and just sustaining. Because if we are from the city, we're from the state, the country, there's something that we want to preserve. And, that is wonderful. I would just want to check if there's any more questions. And while I'm on that, Prabhakar, I just want to remind you about that, that very interesting story you told us, you mentioned about tulsi, camphor tulsi, and how that works.
Yeah.
And how you found it. I mean, I just, while I'm waiting for the next question, and I'm going to unmute everyone who wants to ask, please share that, because I love that story.
So yeah, tulsis and basils, what we always look at basils and tulsis more from the Mediterranean context, because they've really sort of exploited that aspect of basils. But the center of biodiversity for this family of plants is actually South Asia and Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
This is where actually these basils and tulsis came. And we have in India a tremendous palette of tulsis, beautiful varieties, each of them very different. And if you go to the Vriksha Ayurveda descriptors and Charaka Samiti, you will see, Ram tulsi, Lakshman tulsi, Sita tulsi, Vrinda tulsi, Kapur tulsi. Even you will find a whole lot of tulsis, and each of them very, very. I think.
Sorry, my mistake.
Okay. Yeah, so these basils are actually a part of our biodiversity. We are center for biodiversity for basils and tulsis, So we have in our descriptors in Charaka Samhita, we have got Ram tulsi, Lakshman tulsi, Krishna tulsi, we've got Vrinda tulsi, Kapur tulsi, so many things. And one of the very, very sought after tulsis is this tulsi called Kapur tulsi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fascinated with this because I knew that the original descriptor talks about the flavor and taste of the Kapur tulsi as being that of green camphor. Green camphor is what you will find in a Tirupati laddu. Yeah, it's in a Tirupati laddu. That is what you will find, the green camphor taste. But the Kapur tulsi in the market, which you can order on Amazon, God forbid, it costs about $200 or something like that, just for one plant. It's a fake wannabe because it has the flavor of camphor that you burn, for an arti or a puja. Yeah. That camphor it tastes like, not the green camphor that's there in the Tirupati laddu. So I was searching for this plant, and in Uttarakhand, there is this beautiful village on the way to Kausani. In the valley of Koshi River, there is a temple. It's a village called Garud, and temple dedicated to Garuda, the eagle, Vishnu's vehicle, Vahana. So in that temple, because Vishnu is intricately linked with this Kapur tulsi, there is a linkage. The frequency of this plant is very special for the frequency of Vishnu. And in that temple, they had grown this beautiful plant, the original Kapur tulsi. So I asked the priest and he gave me a few seeds. That dates back to thousands of years, though they kept on growing it. It dates back maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years. So we got the seeds of that. So if now today, if you take the seeds from our Kapur tulsi seeds from me, then you will see the difference, between green camphor and plain camphor. It's enormous. And tulsis are very special because that's what you get when you go to a temple. It's medicinal. So each temple will give you a different type of tulsi. You go to Tirupati, there are special families who grow the tulsi only for that temple. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. They don't give you another variety of tulsi. It's only that. There is a very strong linkage between the deity and the variety of tulsi. It's a deep science by itself. Yeah.
I mean, the things that you would never have come to know. Things like how the deity of the temple, which is Garuda, has been the reason why that particular flavor of tulsi has been grown for 1,000 years. and then Prabhakar crosses the road, crosses the river, and then finds this. And then before we know it, we have a bit of history coming back in smell and flavor and taste, and in medicine and texture. I think that is unbelievable. I mean, really, really fantastic. I have so as I said, you've put us on to many different paths, Prabhakar, and I know we're about 6 minutes past time, but you can excuse us for maybe just a couple of questions if I could. I have a question from Anjali Rao, who says that, do you think that we should therefore only eat apples in August and September, which is a season? Is that something that is recommended forward? Anjali, I hope I've put that question correctly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because that's when nature gave you that fruit, because it knew that's what your body needed. If you look at what nature gives you in terms of traditional harvest, it's all connected with what your body needs with changing seasons. And it's good to eat when that fruit is ready to be plucked and eaten on the tree. At the same time, you take it out of the supermarket and eat it. I think it's better than eating it in February for sure. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Anjali also has a question about, is there a sattva, rajas, tamas in vegetable also? Because she says, I thought everything was sattvic as far as vegetables are concerned. So what's your thought on that?
No, absolutely not. You have the vegetables like ginger, for example.
Yeah.
Ginger is one of the, if you're feeling very tamasic, that's you're feeling very, there's a lot of inertia, ginger will really, suddenly give you a booster of prana, You get very energized, yeah, when you have thing like ginger, for example. So many things are there. Many of the plants you will see. The thing is, if you start sensitively observing the relationship between what you eat and how you feel or how you think, it's incredible, because it tells you so much about yourself you never knew. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. And also, you mentioned something, and I'm going to, I promise to leave this as maybe a first, second, last question, but, you talked about the regaining of your identity, of your DNA. I mean, being mapped to the seeds of your land or the seeds of your soil. I thought that was poetic, metaphoric, it has worked with me on so many levels. Tell us a little bit about that, Prabhakar. That was so intriguing.
Yeah. So when you start to eat what your ancestors ate, okay, it triggers primitive memories in your brain, They say that your amygdala or something like that, it contains primitive memories which get triggered. Yeah. And when those memories get triggered, they give you a certain sense of well-being, which cannot be explained in other terms of medical science. It's a well-being that goes just beyond feeling good.
Yeah.
So when you do, for example, Vedic agriculture in your balcony, you're doing what your ancestors did thousands of years. For thousands of years, it's an ancient memory. So when you're making Jivamrita or Panchagavya, you are triggering ancient memories.
Okay.
Similarly, when you eat, vegetables, or you eat dishes that were there thousands of years in your heritage, it triggers, certain memories, and these in turn trigger certain chemicals in your body, which gives you a very different kind of well-being. Some amount of work is going on. Basically, these are all A2 serotonin receptors. They are sites which get blocked, and it gives you a sense of connection. You feel connected to something that's intangible, and that is what is there in the DNA. It's where you come from. Yeah, it is where you come from. So that is I mean, it's something very deep, actually. Yeah.
Yes, it is fascinating. There was a question of identity, I think, was and DNA. I thought we never really connect up these two. You know, you don't look at it as being connected to food. Of course, you have the negative sides, you know, what causes cancer, what causes all sorts of other things that are happening to our bodies. But the fact that it goes back to keeping our past forward. Our sign off has always been Heritage Beku past forward, you know, on many layers. I'm going to just ask, yeah. So there's been some interesting questions saying, you know, when can we sign up for your Vedic agriculture thing? So I'll put it up on Heritage Beku, Prabhakar. Vasanti Hari Prakash has put in a note, and I'm happy if she jumps in. She says, it reminds me of a talk which Parna Pallavi did, a TED talk on what food did your ancestors love, which I'm sure you know about, and her research on Adivasi food.
Absolutely.
So, you know,
Aparna is, I mean, I respect her a lot. She has been doing some wonderful food with traditional Adivasi tribal cuisine. Absolutely, absolutely breathtaking. And, you know, that's another person you should bring on your show about heritage. You know, when we talk about heritage, you know, it extends much beyond cities. I mean, it goes back to the very remote areas where there's such a rich culture. Absolutely, I love her talk. It's on YouTube and one of her TED talks. I love them. I really respect what the woman does here. Absolutely
fantastic. So it's now 6:12. So I think that I do have a feeling that most of us who are on this call will still love to have a little bit of a chat. Maybe we'll just set up a breakout room one of these days and you know, toss some ideas around. But I want to, are we okay if we close now? Anybody has a question, please do put up your hand. I'm happy to. Alia had mentioned, in fact, earlier that, you know, it's strange that we are not, when we're sick, we crave certain kinds of food. And, you know, it's the kind of food that we need, which makes us, you know, which makes us better, really. And I thought that was an interesting point too. But I'll take my role as, you know, anchor and host seriously and be respectful of everyone's time. I just want to thank everyone for signing in. I know that this has been an amazing conversation. And Prabhakar, I want to thank you. You've been my dessert, hopefully a heritage dessert that I saved up and I've enjoyed so much. And I'd like to say that it probably is the same for all the people who have dialed in today. But, you know, the conversations, and I'm going to say that the conversations are around what heirloom seeds mean, how it affects our culinary table, the economics of it, the health and the chakras of it, the sustainability of it, the fact that somewhere the connection with our identity and this whole movement away from the hybrids, you know, bioengineered seeds, to what we really should be getting back to basics, back to history, back to who we are. And this is one of the few conversations, as I said, where you'd be blessed for saying, go and eat your history, be a good girl, go eat your So we're going to do a lot of that. And Prabhakar, I hope you will, you know, give a little bit of a fillip to one small little idea that I have. And I hope everybody will, you know, I'd like very much if any traditional cook, you know, somebody from, like you said, the specific communities that work on this, even if we have a small get together, it doesn't matter if 10 people turn up. I just want to be able to say, this is what the vegetable looks like. This is what the produce is. You know, if we ever do that, and then we say, you're a good girl, you ate your homework, not your dog, you ate your homework. Good. So eat your heritage, eat your history, and go look at your larder, see what it's whispering. Prabhakar, once again, thank you so much on behalf of all of us at Heritage Beku. I look at you as a strong part of the first movement that we've made in Heritage Beku on something edible, so critical, so important, and so fascinating. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Priya. Absolute pleasure to have been here. Thank all the people who have participated. Thank you.
Our pleasure. And guys, please on. We'll have our, you know, Sundays at 5 as often as we can make it. So next week we may have something else which is interesting, but lots of messages which I will try and follow up a little later on. And Vasanti, thank you for dialing in with those wonderful connects that you're making. So thank you, and thank you all for listening in, your thoughts, your support, and have yourself a very, very good Sunday evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alia. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.